Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Dynamics GP Blogster. Today I will be talking about Microsoft Dynamics GP and running the system and company databases on Azure SQL. I must start by saying that this session is a proof of concept to demystify some rumors I've heard as of late of folks claiming to have gotten this configuration to work. I must start by also saying that this is not a supported configuration by Microsoft, and there would be a lot of work needed, at least from a GP perspective, to really get this to function. However, and rather than simply saying it doesn't work, I thought I would use this opportunity to walk through the process of setting up the Azure SQL environment, create the SQL databases, migrate the databases, and finally try to get Dynamics GP utilities to work. So let's get started. So here's my Azure portal, and I have actually positioned myself on the SQL databases resources. And at this moment, I'm going to try to explain a couple of things we will be doing. On my on-premise database, which is running here on my local machine, I have a few databases in place that I would really like to get migrated. In particular, I'm interested in the system database for GP 2018 and the TW18 database, which are part of my GP 2018 and local environment. So that's the end goal. The end goal is to get those two databases migrated and possibly hooked up to Microsoft Dynamics GP. So let's start by creating two databases. What I'm going to do is create two databases with the same name. So here I'm just going to go ahead and add the database name that I'm going to create will be exactly identical to the local database that I have. So in this case, Dyn18RTM. And this will be my system database. And I'm going to add it to my current subscription. I'm going to create it. I'm going to use an existing resource group. I already have a resource group called My Assets. And that particular resource group is going to be used to obviously group all my database resources. I'm going to start out as a blank database. The other options are to set up the sample AdventureWorks database, and the other one is to set up a backup database. So I'm just going to start out with a blank database. I don't have a server configured at this point, so we will have to set up a new server, a new SQL server in the Azure environment that's going to host this particular machine. So I'm just going to call it MGB003 because that's just my preferred name at this point. And I'm going to use DynSA as the admin login. In Azure SQL, you cannot use SA, as SA is strictly reserved for Microsoft to be able to administer overall all the databases that are created. And then I'm going to set up a password for this, and I am going to confirm that password. And as far as location goes, I'm just going to set it up on the East US location. So I'm just going to choose this. And now that I have a server, I need to decide whether I'm going to use an elastic pool, a SQL elastic pool. An elastic pool is a mechanism that Azure SQL uses to basically group databases and be able to perform across database transactions. Well, we know that the Microsoft Dynamics GP company databases talk very frequently to the Microsoft Dynamics GP system database and run a number of procedures. They inquiry a lot of data. So the most likely scenario here is that we want to use an elastic pool to group those databases. Otherwise, if I select no, then I would only have access to set up one database per server, per SQL servers. And a matter of fact, here I'm going to use an elastic pool, and I would have to configure the settings for this elastic pool. So I'm just going to set up a new one here, and we're going to call this the Dynamics GP elastic pool. Okay. Now, a few things that you need to be aware of with Elastic Pools. Elastic Pools, they basically have different pricing tiers. So I do recommend you become very familiar with the pricing and pricing tiers that are specific to SQL Azure. Now, note that the cost of 100 EDTUs for 100 gigabytes would run me close to $224.75 a month. So that basically tells you that this could become pretty pricey pretty soon. But for now, I'm gonna select this particular pricing model, the standard pricing model, and I'm gonna confirm that that's what I want to do with my Elastic Pool. Okay, so now that I have my Elastic Pool in place, I must determine the type of collation that we're gonna set up for this database. And this, by all intents and purposes, is the standard collation used for every Microsoft Dynamics GP database. Anyways, I am going to just create this, and that will be the first database that I will set up. Okay, so note that the deployment is currently in progress, and while that is in place, I'm gonna just wait here for a second because I'm gonna need the Elastic Pool and other information to be present when I add my second database. Okay, I think I have enough going on, so let's just go ahead and set up the new database. And in this case, this one is gonna be TW18, which also is going to correspond to the TW18 database from my on-premise setting. As you can see, I can use the existing resource group that I have. I'm going to set up this as a blank database, and I'm going to use the Elastic Pool. Actually, I'm going to go back and use the same server that I actually had set up. In this case, it hasn't been created yet, so I just got to wait and be patient a little bit more. Okay, now that the deployment has succeeded, we can actually go back and set up the TW18 database. And we're going to set this up again once as a blank database. And as far as server goes, we're going to choose the same server that we previously deployed. And we're going to basically use the same Elastic Pool we previously created. So that said, we're just going to hit create here. And this one should go a little bit faster than the previous iteration. So the deployment is currently in progress. Refresh here, we should see the Dyn 18 RTM database that we previously created. And now we notice that the deployment has succeeded for the TW18 database. So if I refresh like I did this now it appears in the list. Okay, this concludes my first session, and tomorrow we will continue and see how we get the data from my local machine onto the SQL databases created in Azure. Thank you very much.